everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a speed version of the live stream from 9/26/2019. And Peg and I worked some more on our gel printing prompts from the all month long September gel printing everyday challenge from Burgett Coopson and Jelly Arts over on Instagram. So today I'm showing you prompts 20, 23, and 24. 20 was using felt tip markers on the gel plate to print with. And in the past, when I've tried this, I have had a problem with beading when I use a felt tip marker that is a water-based one. So I decided to try putting a coat of matte medium, fluid matte medium. I brayered that on the plate first to give the plate some tooth and something for that water-based media to soak into. And then I'm just using some brush markers that are just a water-based brush marker to draw on the plate over the dried gel medium. And this is working. It's not beating up at all. In the past, I've had like it looks just like little dots, like dots of water rather than a mark. Still kind of a cool effect, but if you want to doodle on your plate, this is a good way to do it. So I'm just using different colors, drawing, doodling, whatever you want to call it, making shapes, mark making, all over that 6x6 plate. This is the 6x6 and the 3x5 plates that I've been using all month. There's still, I think, 6 prompts to go after this, and then the month will be over. The challenge will be over, and I'll be ready to use all these pieces of paper that I've created in the month of September in some collage projects. So that will be fun. So when I was ready to pick up the print, I put a coat of titanium white over it to pick everything up. And the first time I did it, which is on the right hand side, I had no problem. The second time I did it, the one I just showed you, some of that matte medium kind of filmed up. It didn't marry into the paint. I think I should have just left it dry longer, but of course this is a live stream show, and yeah, it's live. You got to hurry. You don't want to be like watching paint dry. So I did have a little bit of film on the plate left over. It was kind of weird, but anyway, it was not a problem. I just got rid of it. So now I'm using a different type of felt tip marker. These are alcohol markers, the Spectrum Noir alcohol markers, and I'm just drawing directly on the plates. And then I put a coat of titanium white acrylic paint and picked them up. There was still a little bit left on that bigger plate, so I decided to make another print, kind of a grungy #crustybits print, using some metallic green paint from PBO Dyna. And that one turned out too. It pulled more off the plate. And then after this, I cleaned it with some baby oil and a paper towel just to get rid of the rest of the pigment off the plate. I don't really care if my plate is stained. That does not bother me. But it does bother me if it keeps coming up. Like in the case of that very linear pattern that was on the 6x6, I don't want that on my next print. So I cleaned it off with baby oil. That's a great way to get any kind of stuff off your plate that's been, crusted on there. So now I'm trying the alcohol markers using a stencil. This is a Stencil Girl stencil. It's got very, very fine lines. And I wanted to see how it would come out if I used the chisel tip of the alcohol markers and just colored over the top of the stencil. Of course, the gel plate attracts the stencil. If you press it down, it's really like stuck on there. I mean, not stuck permanently, but it doesn't allow anything underneath once you've pressed the stencil down. So I got a very clear print doing it that way. Maybe more clear than if I had sponged paint or rolled paint onto that one, because it has such thin, fine lines. That's why I wanted to try it. So that is gel printing with felt tip markers, both the water-based and the alcohol-based markers. Prompt 20. I skipped 21 and 22 because I'd already done both of those and I have videos about it and I didn't really need to do them. So I skipped to 23, which is gel printing on patterned paper. Now, why would you gel print on patterned paper? I can think of a few reasons. One, you just want to obliterate it because it's a nice weight for collage, but you don't want that pattern paper anymore. You're done scrapbooking, you don't care about it. So then you would just want to just put a bunch of layers on there and obliterate everything that's on the pattern. Another reason that you might gel print on pattern paper would be to use the pattern as part of your design. So I was thinking of a couple different things about that you would need to keep in mind. If you want the pattern to show in sections, but not all the sections, then you would want to use an opaque paint and either do what I did with the scraper on the first one, which is to put some paint down and scrape through it, and then you have open areas, and then when you print it on the pattern, you can see the pattern through. Or in the case of the one on the left, I used some circle masks and put the mask down, put the opaque paint over it, and then lifted the masks and printed. And then some of the areas of the pattern are covered and some of them are not. But you need to make sure if you're doing it that way to use opaque paint. Not all acrylic paints are opaque. Some of them are very translucent. Some of them are semi-translucent. Most paints will give you an indicator on the tube, a little symbol. Like in the case of these Arteza paints, there's a symbol, it's a square. If the square is completely filled in, it means it's opaque. If it's half filled in, it's semi-opaque. And if the square is just an open square, it means it's translucent. So there is a variety in this set of Arteza paints of different translucencies. So the next thing, if you want to enhance the pattern of your pattern paper, but not completely obliterate any part of it, you could use a transparent or a semi-transparent paint. And that's what I'm doing with this stencil, which is from the September Stencil Club offerings. There's 3 ladies. It's supposed to be Irish traditional ladies on the stencil. So I used some semi-transparent paint over the stencil. Basically, it's not really a stencil, it's a mask. So I put the mask down, I put the blue semi-transparent paint over it, but I didn't want the face to be too much of the pattern. So I sponged on some unbleached titanium paint on there. And then I put my final layer with a transparent paint, which is the rose from the Arteza set. It's one of the only ones in there that's completely transparent. So then I get the pattern coming through in the background. It's not completely obliterated. And someone was asking me about the stencil, so I showed a couple other prints that I had done that morning during the time before the show of that stencil, which is from the club this month. Stencil Club is fun. You get 3 stencils every month. You pay $25 a month, plus you get videos and access to a Facebook group where there's lots of sharing. And so it's a fun thing to do if you really love stencils, and particularly Stencil Girl. So the next one, I'm still working on pattern paper, but I thought, well, what else is another kind of pattern paper? And I decided to do a little bit of mark making style printing on these tea bag papers. I've been saving these when I drink tea in the morning. I save the bag, let it dry, then I open it up and let the tea come out and use the paper because it's kind of like a tea stained paper. It's very thin and it's great for collage, especially for like if you have a really hard line that you want to soften in collage when you're doing paper painting style. This paper is really great for softening harshness. So I decided I would do a little bit of printing on it just to see how it would be. And I tried some transparent rose. I tried some quinacridone gold. I tried some copper with different stencils that I had laying around. I think these are all Stencil Girl stencils. I use them a lot because I'm on their design team, so they don't tend to get put away, and then they're the ones that are close to me and get grabbed. So this was a lot of fun print on the tea bags. I have some more ideas of more layers to put on there. Just, it's a live show. We're doing it live, so I don't have a lot of time to really play or think about things as much. So another one of the stencils from that same club stencil from this month is a house, and that's this. You get a 9x12, a 6x6, and a 4x4, and I wanted to try printing that. I thought that would make an interesting collage piece on some of the tea stained paper from the tea bags, and so I printed it in violet. It's pretty cool. And then I was trying to pick it up, and it just, for some reason, it just would not come up. So I decided it must be the paper. It didn't want to come up on there at all. I even tried another one. It's still dry. Like, I can't get it off there. So I ended up picking it up onto some dictionary paper, and then I lost most of the definition. Then I decided to pick up through the stencil on the 6x6 with the same one using the quinacridone gold onto a piece of patterned paper. I can see cutting that out and adding it in collage with some more pen work or painting over the top of it. The pattern was a little bit strong, but I thought it looked cool. So then I just put some green over this and picked it up on regular text weight paper. The leftover paint. And I thought that one was really kind of spooky looking. Kind of like a haunted house-y looking situation on that one. I thought it was pretty cool. Grungy. So I think I only have, what did I do? One more thing? No, that's the rest of the patterned paper prompt for prompt number 23. I really liked how the female figure on the pattern paper turned out. I thought that was super cool. So prompt 24 is circles. And actually on the paper it says circles, obviously. Bridget Coopson, who set these prompts for September, likes circles a lot. So I tried different things with circles. The first thing is my little plastic container full of mark making tools that are circles. The insides of spools, of ribbon, the inside of tape, different types of tapes. I like that one that's from the Scotch tape because it has concentric circles, lids, tubes, different things like that. And I just kept lifting off paint with different tools. That's some brown paint. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. You could pick them up just like that, but wouldn't you want to just add a bunch of bright colors? You would, right? So that's what I did. That paint's now dry, pretty dry. So on the smaller one, I used yellow, orange, red combination, and that's going to show through. That brown is opaque paint, so then the colors are going to show through where the circles are because I've lifted the paint off using the mark making tools. For the bigger one, I used pink and turquoise combination and some very bright fluorescent pink. And that one had a little bit too much paint on it. This one came off really nicely. If you don't get your pickup layer of paint very thin, it sometimes will, you'll pull up not all of the pattern. So then you can make a second grungy print, but if you're trying to pull up all the pattern and you have too much paint, it just doesn't work as well. But same exact process, two very different looks depending on the colors that you put over the top. So that kind of gives you a little hint of how that works. So then I did a cleanup grungy print to get the rest of that stuff off the plate, and it turned out pretty cool too. There's some interesting pattern on it. It'll be great for collage. And while I was waiting for that to dry, I started with a stencil. There's a lot of circle stencils in the world. This one's one of my favorites, and that one's from Stencil Girl. It's called Circle Circles, and it's one of their older stencils, but it's very cool. And so I put the paint through the stencil and left open spaces where the stencil was. And then on this side, I'm going to do my dark and bright halo technique where I put black down, put a stencil over it. This one is a Mr. Huey's stencil, I believe. It's called Bubbles, and it's another favorite circle stencil that I have. And then I put the stencil over the top. I pulled all the black paint out, as much as I could get out. And then I put some white paint on, and this creates kind of a halo. It turned a little bit gray, but and then I lifted that up, not worrying as much about getting every single drop, just kind of clearing it up a bit. Then I take some very bright colors, lemon and emerald and orange and cyan, and put it over the top. And while I'm doing that, I'm putting it on the other one that has the dark blue paint, the phthalo blue paint, which is dry, by the way, on that other plate. Adding a little bit of that bright pink. Why not? So then I get a very distinct dark and bright look on the one side by having the stencil hiding that black paint underneath it. And then with the one on the, do I keep saying right and left wrong? The one on the left is what I'm talking about. The one on the right is the one that has a reverse of the stencil, basically. It used it as a mask, but it's pretty darn cool. So then this one, I put a layer of paint over the top to pick it up. You gotta go light, so I kept pulling off extra paint because I got too much on there. Learned my lesson. And I put excess paint on the one on the right, the smaller plate. And then I picked up some of it through the stencil, and on the black it looks really cool. A little bit too much paint. That one didn't want to pull up clean either. But we're winding down. We're almost to the end of the live stream at this point. So I'm in a little hurry to try to get enough prints. And I had more ideas for circles. I had a ton of circle ideas. But I like how those prints come out. They're very bold, in your face. And I put some purple through the other stencil and then pulled it off. And I think I've just got one more print to go. So I hope you're enjoying this video and this video series of gel printing all through the month of September. There's a lot of videos. I also have a lot of other gel printing videos, ones from the challenge last year, ones that are not in any way related to any challenges. There's tons. There's probably 60 videos on my playlist. So if you're just chilling in your studio, you can turn on one of my playlists and just let it run while you're working on your own gel printing. And that's always fun. So I think this is the last print. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to give it a thumbs up. You can leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please turn on your notification bells. That really matters now on YouTube. And you can share this, pin it on your gel printing Pinterest board, or share it on Facebook. And that would all be great. So as you can see, I had too much white paint. I didn't get the whole pattern. So I ended up pulling it again. And that's the grunge print off of the other print. So they match each other. So I ended up with 2 with pattern. Plus I can throw in this other one and I can make an interesting collage with those 3 pieces. So that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.